Online talk show hosted by Irene K. The name of the online talk show is A Conversation with Irene K. Irene will speak on a number of topics like health, comedy, fashion, entertainment, history, science, all genres of music, religion and cooking. You can email us if you have questions for our guest. This is our second show, and our guest for today is Dr. Karla Montague Brown, MD, the founder and CEO of Crowned Two Soul Wellness, LLC. She is a health and wellness lifestyle transformational coach and speaker for women with chronic illnesses such as autoimmune disorders. And now let's welcome our host, Irene K.
Good afternoon. My name is Irene Kercheval. Welcome to A Conversation with Irene K. I have the pleasure today of introducing you to my guest, Dr. Karla Montague Brown, MD. I will give you an introduction, a little backstory, and then I will introduce you to the speaker.
Today's guest is Dr. Montague Brown. She woke up one morning experiencing what she thought was muscle soreness due to lifting her infant nephew. However, she was sadly mistaken. Within days, this previously healthy physician grew steadily worse. Eventually, she was diagnosed with two autoimmune disorders, undifferentiated connective tissue disorder and inflammatory arthritis. Dr. Montague Brown's fear of the recommended medications led her to take greater control of her health to get well. In her book, Overcoming Autoimmunity, she captures her journey in the months leading up to and following her diagnoses. Not only does she share her experience, but she also gives her step-by-step process to healing from chronic illness naturally through lifestyle and nutrition. Karla Montague Brown, MD, previously practiced for many years as a board-certified family physician. Currently, she is a medical consultant for the state of Tennessee Disability Determination Services. She is a healthy lifestyle transformational speaker, holistic wellness coach, and author. Dr. Montague Brown is also the founder of Crowned Two Soul Wellness LLC, whose mission is to encourage, empower, and equip individuals to take control of their health to live with abundance, joy, and holistic wellness. She enjoys being wife to her husband, Terrence, and mother to their sons, Justin and Jordan. Now welcome our guest, Dr. Montague Brown.
Thank you. And it is so great to be with a live audience. For the past 2 years, I've still been speaking, but it's been online. I've been on Zoom conferences, speaking before virtual audiences. They've been live, but we have not been in the same place. So I am so excited to be here, not only on the podcast, which I'm sure some will listen to the audio replay or the video replay, but I'm here with a live audience, and I've already have felt welcomed, and I thank you for having me. I thank Irene for having me here, and we're just going to jump right in. I am a medical doctor, but this is a conversation with Irene and her guest. So this is not a medical lecture per se, but I will share some things with you from a medical standpoint. But I came here really to as Irene said, my mission is to encourage, empower, and equip individuals to take control of their health so that we can live lives of holistic wellness with joy and abundance. So that's why I'm here today, and I'm so excited to be able to just share with you. She shared a little bit about my background, and for many years, I practiced as a board-certified family practice physician in the Nashville area or in the greater Middle Tennessee area. And about, 10, 11 years ago, I transitioned from that, and I'm currently serving as a medical consultant for the state of Tennessee with disability determination services. And then a few years ago, about 2012, I really became more interested in sharing with people lifestyle principles to help them take control of their health. Even though you may be having medical issues and maybe taking medication, but there's more to it than just taking a pill. A lot of times we need to know what we can do to take control of our health and to have a healthy lifestyle of mind, body, and spirit. And so that's what we want to talk about today. For many years, I have been invited to speak before audiences, sometimes hospital groups or women's groups, workshops, and a lot of times we talk about healthy lifestyle, and a lot of the principles are simple, but when we put them into practice, sometimes it's difficult to do. I don't know if you've ever tried to either lose weight or gain weight or start exercising or whatever it is, whatever your goals are, and you have in your mind, oh, I'm going to do this, and then somehow it falls off. We don't do it, or sometimes we just don't know how. We don't know what it is that we need to do. So we're going to talk about some of those principles today that I think are important, that I think will help you, that will help us all to live not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually to help us to live abundant lives. She shared with you that in the introduction that I woke up one day, and this is after years of feeling really, really healthy. I was one of those intentional, and have always been intentional about taking care of my health, especially because I became a mother at what is considered a later age. I was in my early 30s with my first son, and with my second son, I was almost 40 when I had him. So for me, I started feeling like I really need to take good care of myself. Even as a physician, I wasn't doing a lot of bad things, but I really became more intentional about taking care of myself because of my children. I was thinking, I don't want them to have to push me in a wheelchair because, and they're like 5 years old because I haven't taken care of myself. And so I became more intentional about taking care of myself, still learning, still teaching health, taking care of my patients. So I felt like I was doing pretty good. I would walk. I thought I had a pretty good diet, and was teaching health, had been teaching health and wellness for years. And as she mentioned, one day I woke up feeling just stiff and sore and wondering, and I remarked to my husband, I don't know why I'm feeling sore, like I've been working out, but I haven't really been doing a lot of extra moving around or lifting or anything like that. And I said, well, maybe it's because I was taking care of the baby. I was taking care of my niece's children for the weekend, and she has an infant son. She had an infant son at that time. And we laughed about it. My husband and I laughed, like, oh yeah, you're old trying to take care of a baby. It's been years since you've taken care of a baby. And I thought, well, I'll take a couple of hot shots. But I didn't have fever, didn't have cough or any of those flu-like symptoms. My body was just so achy and stiff. Again, from my head was the only thing that didn't hurt. Every part of my body, from my neck to the bottoms of my feet, hurt. And so I told my husband, I said, this is more than lifting the baby. This had gone on for maybe a few days, maybe a week or so, and I was dragging to work, and at this point, I'm not seeing patients anymore. I'm working for the state, so I was going into the office, but I would come home and could not do anything. I would just jump right in the tub, and I'm a shower person. My husband's a tub person. I was like, I got the tub this time, and because I had to just soak my body. But when I would get out, I wasn't feeling much better, so I finally decided, okay, it's time for me to go see my doctor. Now, I'm one of those types of people who I'll go for my regular checkups, but when I have a little illness, I'll wait before I go because I figure, well, I don't have to run to the doctor for every little thing. Now, I'm a medical person, but I know that there are things that will run its course. Well, this wasn't, whatever course it was running, it was not running in the right direction. So I finally went to see my doctor and told her what was going on. And at this point, not only was I achy, my joints started to swell. I could feel my muscles that they were inflamed. And so I knew that I had some type of inflammatory process, but I wasn't really sure what was going on. And then I started bruising. I had these bruises on and no type of trauma, but my skin started bruising and I got scared. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go see my doctor. So when I go to see my doctor, and we were in medical school together, she looks at me and she's like, well, you don't usually come to the doctor for just something really must be wrong. And so as I explained to her what was going on, she said, well, let's do some tests. And she did a lot of blood work. And about a few days later, she called me and she said, well, I think we're going to have to send you to a rheumatologist. It looks like you may have lupus or some type of autoimmune disorder. And I wasn't surprised because I knew what some of the symptoms were, and I was hoping, of course, that it was still maybe the flu or something like that. But because I knew I was feeling worse and worse, I wasn't surprised. So when I went back in to see her for the follow-up, she wanted to put me on some medication, prednisone. But at this point, we didn't really know what was going on. And I mentioned before that I'm real hesitant about taking medications, and I want my disclaimer: if you're on medication and need it, take it. But sometimes we can have so many medications and they're masking symptoms but not getting at the root of the problem. So I really didn't know what was going on, and I didn't want to start taking medication and then I don't know if the side effects from the medication is what I'm experiencing, or is this the illness? And so she understood that. I said, well, let's wait. If I'm not getting ready to die right this minute, let's wait a little while. I can take the pain, but I need to know what's going on. And the side effects from the medication mirrored some of the symptoms that I was already having. And I've had problems in the past taking medications, either side effects or, there are times when I've ended up in the emergency room because of some medication. So I was really hesitant. And she said, okay, well, we'll monitor you, but we're going to send you to the specialist. So in the meantime, I started doing some research. And over the course of several years, I have been more intentional about lifestyle medicine and wellness education. So there were some things that I had been learning that I started really implementing even more. And I said, well, let me figure out what might be triggering this. And I didn't know. A lot of times we don't know. And I'll talk a little bit more about what autoimmune disorders are in a few minutes. But I started to really be intentional about what I was putting in my body and on my body, trying to learn things that might help me until I could get to the rheumatologist to see what was going on, to find an actual diagnosis. Well, now I don't know what your experience has been with the medical community, and I'm a part of the medical community, but it took a long time before I could get to see the rheumatologist. And I'm a medical professional, and I just had to wait, just like everybody else had to wait. And when they gave me the appointment, it was probably like 6 weeks away. And I said, well, either I'm going to be dead by then, or hopefully I'll be well by then. So the time went on. I said, well, I'm just going to keep doing the things that I know to do. As I learned other things that might help me, I'm going to keep doing these things. And so I went on, and by the time I got to the rheumatologist, I was starting to feel a little better. Wasn't well, but I was starting to feel a little better. And so by the time, it was about 8 weeks before I actually saw the rheumatologist, and they wanted to put me on medication right away after I explained some of my symptoms. But we still didn't have a diagnosis. She wanted to do other testing to pinpoint exactly what was going on. So I'm like, let's do the test. I said, well, I'm feeling a little better. I'm not well, but I feel like what I'm doing is helping. So until we find out the exact diagnosis and know exactly how to treat it, I'd appreciate if you just monitor me. And she's like, okay, well, I'd rather give you this medicine, but I will honor your wishes. And so she did. We worked together, and she decided to do the testing. And so when I came back, they diagnosed me with undifferentiated connective tissue disorder and inflammatory arthritis. I had some of the symptoms of lupus, which is one of the more common autoimmune disorders that's known. A lot of people have heard of that and may have that. You may have it or may know someone who has that. But what happens in autoimmune disorders, the body starts to attack itself. We have an immune system which is supposed to help our bodies fight infections or any other threats from the outside that may be causing us harm, maybe some toxin, could be a virus or some other type of insult. Well, the immune system, the way our bodies are made, is designed to take care of that so that we can get well. In autoimmunity, what happens is the immune system starts to go haywire, for lack of a better term, and the body starts attacking itself. So those cells that work to help take care of our body, instead of it recognizing the foreign substances, it starts recognizing parts of the body that's a regular part of the body as foreign, and it starts attacking that. And so any part of the body can be affected. So in my case, it was my joints, it was my muscles. There were times where I had trouble breathing. I ended up in the emergency room from work one day, and that was such a humbling experience to be at work and to leave on a stretcher and not care how you look. I was like, just get me out of this place and get me somewhere, because I'm not getting ready to die in a cubicle at work. That's just not going to be cool. So I ended up in the emergency room, and what I want to share with you is that in autoimmunity and even other chronic illnesses, you may be given a diagnosis, and you also may be told, well, there is no cure for what you have. And that is what I was told, and that was very discouraging. It was very frightening, because I have young children, and they're young adults now, but in my mind, it's like they still need their mother. My husband still needs me, and I still want to be here. But when you have a chronic illness and you feel bad, you start thinking about your mortality. I mean, we can die at any time, we realize that, but when you have an illness, and especially if you have been well and now you're sick, not only physically do you have to deal with that, then you have to deal with the emotional aspects of that as well. And even in persons of faith, sometimes your faith can be shaken a little bit. In my case, and I don't know how many of you are Christian and have heard any of the stories in the Bible, but there's one story that came to mind, and this is the one with the woman that had the issue of blood, and she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and she was made whole. And so that was my prayer. I was like, I would lay in the back of bed. I couldn't even get on my knees to pray. I was so stiff and sore. But I would pray, Lord, I'm touching the hem of your garment, and I want to be made whole like you did for that woman in the Bible. So when I wake up, and I had faith, y'all, but I woke up and I was still sick. I was still sick for a while. And so it was almost like God was telling me, look, I got you, but we're not doing it like that. I'm taking you through a process for a reason. And this is not only for you, but you have a platform, or you're in a position to be able to share with someone else, not just from what you read in a book, but from your professional and your personal experience. So just trust me. And so I had to continue to pray, to trust God for healing, for my healing, especially after being told that there is no cure for what you have. Now, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about why this emotional thing was going on with me. I mentioned that I had pain from my neck on down to the bottoms of my feet. Now, I came in here today, it was raining. I do have some real shoes on, but I brought my rain boots in. So this is what I wore for like a month, almost 6 weeks, every day when I first got sick, because my feet were swollen. It hurt to walk, and I was still trying to go to work. I still had to work. every day for about 4 to 6 weeks, I wore those rain boots. And I keep them as a testament because I was still going. I had to find ways to still be grateful. I'm like, well, Lord, I'm glad I got these boots because I can't wear my shoes. So it might have been sunshiny outside. I had rain boots on. And there was one day I remember I was going to church. I said, well, the sun is shining, but I'm wearing these boots. And then later on it started raining, so I just started praising God. I said, well, I don't look real crazy with these boots on because it's raining outside. But I didn't care. They laughed at me at church. I would go and I would sit on the front row with my rain boots on, and they said, well, Dr. Brown's here today. She's got her rain boots on. And I share that because sometimes when we are dealing with stuff, it can be depressing. It can cause anxiety, but we can still find ways to move beyond the depression parts of it, and find ways to still laugh. And so I laughed at myself, but I was also grateful that I was able to walk, even though I had a lot of pain. One of the other things that I had to deal with because of all this pain and swelling. Now you see I have props here, and those of you who might just be listening, I'll try to explain to you what I'm sharing with the live audience today. So I shared with them my rain boots, but I would have to go to bed like this, and this was, being sick sometimes can be very humbling because you have to depend on people. Sometimes you might cry in front of people because you feel bad, and you don't want to be like that, but sometimes the reality is there were times where I did cry. But there were also times when I was not afraid to let people know what was going on with me. Sometimes we want to keep things to ourselves, and everybody's different. We want to have our privacy. But this, for some reason, I was compelled to share this. So even on social media, I was like, pray for me and call my whole name so God will know who you're talking about, because I'm going through this thing. And I want more than just my prayers. But I would go to bed like this. At a heating pad. I wasn't cute in the bed, honey, y'all. I was like, whatever I need to do so I can get some sleep. I had ace wrap. I might have my wrap on my wrists, my elbows. I couldn't find my little knee brace. So, and actually that's a blessing because I haven't had to use it in a while. But I would have to go to bed with all this stuff on. Compression socks. Now, I'm like laying in the bed next to my husband with all this stuff on. I was not sexy at all, but that's okay. I was trying to get some relief and get some sleep, and he was just so patient and kind. And for those of you who have been married or are married, when they say in sickness and in health, we really had to live through that. And still do. But that really meant so much to me because here I am, the mother, the wife, I'm the working woman doing all this, and I needed help. I was pretty much flat on my back. And I remember overhearing my husband one day telling my sons, and he didn't know I heard, he said, look, Mommy's not well right now. You have to make sure you step up so we can help her. And that just meant so much to be able to have that support. And sometimes we have to humble ourselves and allow people to help us. Sometimes we want to, especially if you're used to being in control, you don't want people to know that you're suffering or hurting. But there are times that we are not isolated. We are in community. And so there are times when we do have to reach out and get that help. Like I said, I went to bed. There were times I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is Dr. Teal's Epsom salts. I had to soak in this. All of these are some of the things that I tried. I had to put little inserts in my shoes, in my boots, so that because it was like I started losing a lot of weight. I didn't mention that. It was like rapid weight loss, but not a weight loss of, okay, I want to lose weight to fit into this outfit. This was like sick weight loss. It was like I'm normally small, but I was always been fairly muscular and healthy. So it was I didn't feel like, oh, I look sick, but I looked sick, and I couldn't hide it. I just remember telling my husband, I was like, oh, none of my clothes fit, and I was having a little pity party, Irene, like, oh, I can't, my clothes don't fit, I'm skinny, and I look like, like I'm malnourished or whatever. And he just said, well, you know what, let's just go buy you some clothes that fit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense.
Sweet.
And so it took a while, but I started to feel better and went back to the doctor, and they finally gave me a diagnosis. At this point, I still didn't really want to take the medication because my lab studies started to look better. I still wasn't completely well, but I started feeling better after some months. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that I did that may be of help for you. Even if you don't have an autoimmune disorder, you may have some type of chronic illness like hypertension or diabetes, or you may have some type of arthritis. But there are some things that you can do to help take control of your health. So when my labs came back and they were getting better, she felt a little more at ease, I think, about not pushing the medication on me, because I did have a plan. I was doing something, and I had promised her that I would stay in touch, and that if things got worse, I would come back in or go see my primary care doctor. That was our agreement, and I understood, because in the medical world, if there are certain protocols that you follow, the doctor doesn't want to be accused of malpractice or not doing what she's supposed to do or he's supposed to do for the patient. But it's important to be able to work together, and so she understood my position and I understood her position, and so it was so very gratifying that when she was in agreement, and she said, okay, we'll just keep monitoring you, but I need you to keep coming back in, and let's see what's going on. So I went back for another follow-up. This is months, I was going every few months. And so one of the times I was going back for my lab work, and the nurse practitioner who saw me, she said, well, now the doctor has said that if your labs are still really bad, or if you're this one specific titer, or what they call the ANA titer, this is one of the markers that they check for when you have autoimmune disorders or inflammation. She said, if this is still positive, we really need you to start the medication. Now, in my mind, I'm still thinking I really don't want to take the medicine, but I was like, okay, well, let's just see what it shows. So I'm praying, and so when I got the email back, and it said my titer had become negative. And so I was just so grateful, because I saw this process work, and she had told me that there was a chance that it would get worse and that I would develop lupus or some other not an undifferentiated type of disorder. And she said it could stay the same or it could go into remission. And so I was praying I'm praying for healing, but I was praying for the remission. And so I just thank God that when those numbers came back, that things were getting back to normal, and I was feeling better. I was able to start walking again, because I was at the point where I couldn't walk in my neighborhood. We had just moved into a new house, and I couldn't even go upstairs in my house. I couldn't go. My family, we'll get in the mornings, we have family worship where we pray together before we go out for the day. We would do it in the family room, but we had to bring it into the bedroom, because I couldn't even get on my knees to pray. I would have to pray lying flat on my back. And I share that because I know that everybody has different things that they deal with, and it can look very bleak. I'm honestly, I didn't know if I was going to live or not. I get kind of emotional thinking about it, but that's the reality. And I remember asking one of my church members, one of the elders at my church, I saw her at church one day, and so everybody knew that I was sick. I'm a person in my church that was up front a lot. I sing and involved in church, so it wasn't like I could hide. So everybody see this transformation in real time, this vibrant, energetic woman now looking like she's 30 years older than she had been looking. And I saw this lady, one of the elders, and I went to her and I said, if I had some oil, I would ask you to anoint me. And she's like, you know what? I've been thinking about offering you that service. And I'm like, okay, great. And so she came to my house the next day and did an anointing service for me. She prayed with me, and it was just such a blessing to, as I said, sometimes we have to reach out. And so I'm like, wherever the help comes from, I'm going to do my part, but let's still pray. And I was on so many people's prayer list, and I'm the kind of person that believes, as the scripture said, faith without works is dead. So I could have all the faith in the world and do nothing, or I could have faith and then start to move forward and start to act. And so that is my, that's how I approach it. And so I just want to encourage whoever might be. You may have a family member who's dealing with some type of chronic illness. You yourself may have some type of chronic illness and have been told, well, there's no cure, and you don't know what to do. But there are things that we can do to take control of our health, to move forward, to at least have a better quality of life. We still might have to deal with whatever illness we have. We still might have to face our mortality, but that, what they call that dash, that gap in between where we are now and the time we close our eyes, what do we do with that? How do we maximize that and live lives of joy, abundance, and holistic wellness? And so I want to now segue into if you have any questions. Somebody might have some questions before we move on. You have any questions, Irene?
Anyone with questions? I personally know very little about what you're going through and what you spoke on and how you defined it all out. I more directly for me would be, what are the triggers? Mm-hmm. It's easy if you're accustomed to having pain and just dealing with pain and going on about your business. Mm-hmm. And as you age, realistically, you need to start listening to your body. And because you're so accustomed to doing your own thing, you don't think about the things you're used to dealing with. Mm-hmm. So with the autoimmune system, which I am to take, is more into the whole thing of the whole construction of who you are, that we don't understand. And autoimmune system, I got it, I don't have it, and but what are the triggers?
So that's a great question, Irene, and a lot is still being studied. And a lot of times when people have an autoimmune disorder, it may take a while for them to diagnose you, and sometimes people will have different symptoms. But some of the main triggers that are thought to be causative, one, the foods that we eat. And a lot of times now, because we eat so much processed food, and I guess a long time ago, a lot of times people grew their own food, or you lived on the farm and things like that. But now we eat a lot of fast foods, we eat a lot of processed foods, and we eat a lot of stuff that's really not food. I mean, when I say not food, it's packaged as food, but when you read the labels, it's a lot of chemicals. Mm-hmm. And so these are thought to be some triggers. There are some viruses can be triggers. You may have heard of like Lyme disease or chronic Lyme disease. That's thought to be another type of trigger. And then we have
Yes. Lyme disease. How is it defined, and how does one know when they get it?
Okay, well, again, you have to have certain tests, but some of the symptoms will be fatigue, and these are common with many of the autoimmune disorders: pain, fatigue, weakness, stiffness, what they call brain fog, and especially that overwhelming fatigue. I think pain and fatigue are some of the main symptoms that a lot of people will have with any type of autoimmune disorder. But with the Lyme disease, it's thought to be carried by a tick.
Okay.
And so it can just affect the body. So the body is trying to fight it, but then when those the ill or the tick or whatever it releases gets embedded in the body, then the body, so it's like in a state of chronic inflammation. Mm-hmm. And with many of the autoimmune disorders, that's one of the main culprits is the inflammation, and which is one of the things that I started to attack even before I knew exactly what I had. And I think with many of the autoimmune disorders, whether it's a thyroid problem, sometimes you can have some of the other common ones are with the digestive tract. You may have heard of ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, where the gut lining is attacked. Multiple sclerosis, which attacks the nervous system. Scleroderma, which affects the skin. So any part of the body can be affected. A lot of times people may have kidney problems or problems with the heart, problems with the lungs. So any part of the body can be affected. And those triggers, like I said, you can have environmental toxins. So even some of the detergents that we might use, some of our cleaning solutions, the lotions that we might put on our skin. Mm-hmm. It's so many things and they can accumulate. So it may not be just one trigger, but the accumulation of all these different triggers in the body is just overloaded or overwhelmed and is just starting to attack itself. And so one of the keys is, for me, and I think for many, and even the studies have shown that if we can attack this inflammation, and which is what the medications, I guess, are designed to do, but if we can attack it naturally. So if you're on an anti-inflammatory medication, but everything else you're doing is causing inflammation, it doesn't, it kind of balances out, or it's not going to really be as effective. So if it's almost like if I'm giving you some medicine to keep you from being inflamed, but then you keep doing stuff that's inflaming you, or then you're going to still have the problem is still there. So you need to attack it in different ways. So that's one of the things that was really key in my recovery. I think part of it was the physical, and so I had already been on a journey of intentionality, I guess, as it relates to my diet, as it relates to food. And I like to eat. I like to eat good food. I'm not one of those kind of people that just eat, lettuce and tomatoes. I like to eat good food. But I had to really kind of broaden as far as the fruits and the vegetables. And a lot of times we get stuck on, we might eat one or two things and this is our favorite thing to eat. And so that's what we do. We get, we're creatures of habit. But it's possible to create new habits, and I think sometimes it can be challenging. But as we start to make steps, step by step, you can't go from here to here just like that. But as you go step by step, and I think that's the key. A lot of times we become overwhelmed when we try to do too much too soon, and we sabotage ourselves. But as we take things step by step, as you learn more, you do more. I continue to grow. I continue to learn and implement things, and not just for myself, but if it's working for me, then I try to share with somebody else how they may be able to incorporate that and see if it may be helpful to them. So you may be wondering why I have these crowns here. Well, I'll tell you why. My business is Crown to Soul Wellness, and that is not an accident. I believe that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are of royalty, and so these crowns help me to remember that I am of royalty. I am special. No matter what I've been through or what somebody else may have told me to try to tear me down, or whatever your experience has been, whatever trials you have been through, whatever someone has said to you that was derogatory or to put you down, We don't have to believe that. That's not the truth. The truth is we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
And I have a lot of royalty in the room today.
Absolutely.
One is Faith, Margaret, Frenchie. She's the conversationalist
Okay.
and very uplifting. And I can't call you Susan. Yeah. So and Karen. So we all royalty today.
We are royalty.
I represent royalty today.
That's right.
but
That's right.
but so are them with kings.
Well, you see, I have my king's crown and the queen's crown.
And I do believe that. May I just say this?
Sure.
When I had my back surgery in 2016, I decorated the HCA. I was there for a month. I had pictures brought in. I had pedestals, but vases. I had all the flowers that were in the cafeteria brought in, put in the window. And I think it's very important what you're touching on today, because we don't relate our lives to words. So autoimmune system, I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know what you were suffering through it. I didn't even know what that meant. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it is bad. So it is important to know, because if you're not going through it, there may be a family. You might have a family member
it's very
or
likely
a
that
friend
you know someone who is
and
suffering from
to
some
become
type of-
familiar, you know better how to be uplifting to them, and you know better what to say to them and to identify. So I'm really learning a lot today that I do not pretend to know. I heard you mention thyroids. Now, are you connecting that to?
There's some of our thyroid disorders are considered autoimmune. You may have heard of like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and and even some of the other illnesses that may not have been thought to be autoimmune in the past. They are now realizing that they have some autoimmunity components. So even like diabetes, it's always been thought that type 1, which is what they consider the juvenile, or you see in your younger people, but even now type 2 diabetes, they're seeing some components of the autoimmunity. So it's so prevalent now, and a lot is still being learned, but a lot has been learned. And so as we learn more, we understand that all of these different factors are triggers for us, but that doesn't mean we have no hope. We can, now that we know, we can be proactive and do our part.
That's right.
So even though we might have to take medication, that's not just it. You know, there's still some other things that you can do to hopefully keep you from having to take medicine, or keep you from having to take so much. And I think as we learn those things, and we'll talk about some of those principles, and everybody's different, but some of these principles that I want to share with you are global. They are, you know, we have these all in common, and we can be at different levels of how we approach these lifestyle principles.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so.
Yeah. And I won't interrupt. I was told from my first podcast, every family member you never hear from called you. I thought you had the guest on the show to speak. You sort of overpowered her a bit. So I'm being very deliberate in trying to contain myself today. So please help me out. Come with some questions, starting with Faith. Faith, you have a question?
Well, is there an actual definition of what an autoimmune disease is? You know,
well, actually, there are probably several if you look it up, but what you will probably see more common is that the immune system is attacking itself. So that's probably the most common, straightforward definition. So like I mentioned before, our immune system is the protective system for the body to take care of those foreign insults. And so when it's functioning properly, it's taken care of. It's like the Army or Navy or whatever, so to speak. It's your protective mechanism. But when you have friendly fire, you still can die. So I guess it's kind of like friendly fire. It's like the body's like, oh, there's something wrong with this thyroid, and your body's starting to see it as a foreign entity and attacking it. So the immune system attacking itself, and I guess that would be the most concise definition. Did you? Yes.
Yes, what can you do about the autoimmune disorders?
I'm glad you asked. You segue right into my last part of what I want to talk about. So we will, I'll share with you what I have done and what I'm doing and what I teach and what others teach as well. And this is what you can do outside or in addition to whatever medications your doctor may have you on. This is you taking control, because you are ultimately in control of your body, So if we're ready to do that, then we'll do that. I'm a kind of person, I was so excited to be live, so I started I'm a bag lady. I'm just like, I used to teach kids at church, and so I like visual aids, so I did bring some things to kind of share with you. But I did outline this in my book, some of the steps that we talk about, and I also have an action guide. It's called Crown to Soul Wellness Action Guide, and it's on my website. It's the free gift that I offer on my website, and it talks about some of the things that I'm getting ready to share with you. But like I mentioned before, my business is Crown to Soul Wellness, and it's a deliberate, it's an intentional title for my business, or it was intentionally named that to help me and to help you remember the principles that I want to share with you. And the C stands for control of your choices. And so it's very important that you realize that you are in control. Sure. You're in control of who you go to see as far as your doctor. You're in control of how you decide to take care of yourself or not take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So that C in Crown to Soul it stands for self-control or choices. And so we have the power to make choices of how we think, of what we do, how we interact with people. We are in control of those choices, and we can make choices that are good for us. We can make choices that are harmful for us. We're the drivers of that. And so as we remember that, sometimes we might have to be honest with ourselves and make some different choices as we learn. Sometimes we don't know what to do, but then we have the choice to try to figure it out, try to get the help that we need. And then if we see that we're making choices that are not good for us, for example, if you are trying to lose weight and it's known that, okay, if you eat this, it's got all these calories in it, and it's going to make you gain weight. But you like this, and this, and so I'm going to keep eating this, and this, but you're saying I want to lose weight. Well, then, you have to make different choices, or either decide, no, I don't want to lose weight. I just want to eat this, and this. So we're in control. So as we remember that C, that we are the ones that are in control. The R stands for rest. And one of the things I just brought this is just my little reminder for rest, my little eye mask. But when I first became ill, I was working 5 days a week, going to church, working in church, so I was busy and probably doing too much. Didn't know how to say no to some things, and there are times when you want to participate, you want to say yes, but then there are times when we have to get that balance and make sure that we rest. And it's during the time that we are asleep or that we're resting that our bodies are able to repair itself. When we're going and not getting adequate rest, the body is not able to take care to repair itself. So it's very important that we rest. It's recommended that we get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep at night and try to get that during a certain times of the night. But many of us, we might be up all night, whether it's watching TV or doing whatever, worrying, whatever, and just busy, doing. And one of the things that I had to do was scale back on my work. And because I was working 5 days a week, and I remember going in one day and telling the scheduler that this is my schedule for the month, and I had scheduled working 5 days a week. And then I thought about it, and this is the time I was sick. I was not feeling well. And that night, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do that. But I had to humble myself and be real with myself, make the choice to make a better choice. And I went back. I said, you know what? Tear that schedule up. I'm coming in 3 days a week. And, whatever I get done, I get done. And whatever I don't, I have to take care of myself. So it's important that make sure you get the adequate rest that your body needs. The O is for outdoors air. And as we get outside, and a lot of times we're inside, and especially during the winter months, or if the weather's not good, or if you're working, those of us who, we were inside all the time and closed up, but that as we get outside and get fresh air, our body actually needs that for our circulation, for good circulation. Those are simple things, but we don't realize it, and sometimes we have to be intentional about it, especially if you don't work outside or if you're not into gardening or something like that. Those are the ways that you can kind of naturally get outside, but if you're not doing those types of things, you have to be intentional about, okay, let me just go out on the patio. Let me just go take a walk outside. The W stands for water, and it's important that we get adequate water intake. Now, when I was seeing patients every day, that's one of the questions I would ask my patients when I do the intake history, and many of them were not drinking water. Everything but water. It's like, well, doc, I drink tea, coffee, milk, soda, whatever, wine, beer, but no water. But our bodies we lose water every day through our perspiration, with our personal, taking care of our personal needs, and we have to replace that. Our body is made about 70 to 80% water, all the organs of the body. So that needs to be replaced, and when we don't do that, we become dehydrated. And that just, we don't realize it, so we have to be intentional about things like that. The recommendation is 4 to 6 8-ounce glasses of water a day. So if you're doing none, just start with 2 cups. You might not be able to get 8 ounces, 8 cups a day, 6 to 8 cups a day starting off, but you can start where you are and then improve. The N stands for nutrition, and I brought some things over there. That was a big key for me in my transformation. I don't like to cook, but I do like to eat. And so I had to start cooking more, just what we call whole foods. So instead of my beans being in the can, I have to just get them in the bag, and but fortunately I got this Instant Pot.
Oh.
I had heard of it, but then when I got sick, my brother sent me one, and then I was too lazy to read how to do it. But we started using that, and it has just taken the time down for, because foods like that can take a long time. When you're doing beans from dry beans, it can take a long time. But we started doing that more, eating more fresh vegetables, raw and cooked. So I eat a lot of fruit. I eat a lot of nuts, whole grains. So I eat like brown rice, oatmeal, things like that, quinoa, just whole foods. My fruit, you don't have to read the ingredients, it's just fruit. An apple, all the ingredient is an apple. And you have to even be careful with some of the nuts. Some of those brands like that taste good, they have all kind of oils and salts and stuff in them. So if it says more than cashews or almonds, don't get those. Get the ones that just say almonds. That's all that's in there. You get a bunch of greens or spinach, it's just spinach. You know what that is. So that's my I guess rule of thumb. I don't really look at calories or count the calories. I look at the food. And the other rule of thumb for me is to color my plate. So it's like, okay, I got some green, I got something yellow. Do I have something? Did I eat something orange today? And I do that with the fruits and the vegetables. So if I hadn't had something orange in a while, I'm like, oh, I might need to eat some carrots or a sweet potato or, some tomato, or if it's my fruit, maybe some strawberries or berries. Or so I just think, color the plate, a variety. So even if you're not into counting calories or I need my starches, I just color the plate. It makes it simple for me. The T stands for trust, or trust in God. Trust the process and trust in God. And for me, when I first got sick, like I said, I was the kind that didn't mind sharing, like, something's going on, y'all. I'm sick and I need y'all to help me. Are we getting out of time? Okay. And so I began to really trust or be more intentional about reading scriptures, listening to songs that would help my mind, to transform my mind. The scripture says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so instead of going down that rabbit hole of anxiety and depression, or what if this, what if I don't get better, I start thinking, okay, Lord, I'm still here. Reading scriptures, things that were uplifting and positive. And one of the things that really helped me was to, share that with others, and others would encourage me. That second O is for optimistic outlook. And it's very important to have a positive attitude. And one of the things that I think is really helpful in that is rehearsing your gratitude. Now, I have this book here, and I put my friend Irene. I'm going to see if I can find.
I'm in her book. I only found that out today. I didn't know
So
that.
I'm going to just read this
Oh, you have
little
a picture of
section.
me. Turn back. Holy maca there.
I told you in my book.
And guess what? Turn back. I'm wearing white. Can you believe that? Didn't even know I was in her book.
So I'm just going to read this. It says, my self-care routine starts and ends with my mindset rituals. Upon awakening, I thank God for life and for taking care of me through the night. I read scriptures and inspirational devotional passages to help me start my day and get me in the right frame of mind. Sometimes I'll journal or write out my gratitude. Writing out my gratitude is a practice I was inspired to do by my friend Irene, whom I met when we were members of Toastmasters International. While I was used to thinking about what I was grateful for, I was impressed that she had started the practice of writing her gratitude daily and had done it for many years. Irene reached out to me after learning I was ill, and we were able to go out and enjoy a meal together. And so I had to put Irene in my book. I met Irene years ago, I guess maybe 2006, and I was in this Toastmasters group, and she comes in one day, just this ball of energy, breath of fresh air, and we immediately connected. But when she shared that about the gratitude, I thought, what a beautiful practice to write this down, because I would think about it. And so from then I started doing that. And I don't do it every day like she does, but I had started doing it a lot more. And actually, before I got sick, one of my last entries was, I'm grateful for my health. Because it's something that I didn't take for granted then, and now that I'm healthy again, I don't take it for granted. And so I think it's important that we have the right attitude, to have an optimistic outlook. The S stands for sunlight, and as we get outside, get the fresh air, it's also important to get sunlight. And it's harder in the winter time or when it's raining, but now that the springtime is coming, get outside and get in the sun. Let's see, did I do all three O's? Oh, the other O, the third O is for others. And I shared with you how other people poured into me. It's important to humble yourself and get the help that you need. But the flip side of that is, it's also important to give to others, to not be selfish, and to open your heart to share with someone else. And one of the reasons that I wrote this book one of the reasons was just a legacy project for me, to just kind of share my story, but not just to talk about myself, but so that it can help someone else, because I was helped by reading somebody else's book. When I got sick, a friend of mine recommended this lady's book, and she was a female physician, and she had suffered from lupus. And so I didn't know if I had lupus or not. So I read her book, and I was just so inspired. And I was like, if she hadn't written that, that's a resource I would not have had. And so I wrote my book because I said, this is a resource that someone else may have.
Excuse me.
And so our last two letters, I mentioned love. As we operate from a standpoint of love as opposed to hate or unforgiveness, it frees us. And so we have to be intentional about it. So much stuff is going on in our world today, and it has always been like that. But it just seems like, I guess because of the internet and social media, and we're just so aware of all the bad. But then let's look for the good, and let's operate from a standpoint of love. And as we do that, we free ourselves, and that's part of the healing process as well. And then that E stands for exercise. And there are many forms of exercise. I have a jump rope here, I have some weights. I like to walk. That's my favorite form of exercise. But another thing that I like to do, and I know Irene likes this one, is dancing. So if walking is boring to you, or some of these, you don't feel like jumping rope, but if you get some good music and can move a little bit, that's good exercise. Gardening, things like that. So these principles that I've shared with you in Crown to Soul, it's designed to help us to truly achieve holistic wellness from the crown of your head to the sole of your foot. So many of you are wondering about that crown. And so I just want you to remember that you are royalty. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I want you to enjoy a holistic, abundant life of joy from the crown of your head to the sole of your foot. I am so happy to have been invited to be here today. I thank you, audience, online as well as here live. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, it's been 2 years since I've been in before a live audience. And so thank you for having me. Thank you, Irene.
You're so welcome. Mayor Ken Moore, and where we start, that's up to you, because I don't know what introduction would be proper, but I will leave it in your hand to discuss what it is you would like to present us with today.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. This is a little bit of a surprise, because a lot of times I have people call my office and my assistant puts things on my calendar, and then I just respond, because that's what I'm supposed to do, is show up. I think you're gonna, you got a lot of power. But I think the first thing is, I am not an immunologist. I'm not a physician that's specialized in immune diseases. So my background is, I was an orthopedic surgeon for 28 years, and I specialized in surgery of the hand. And
So I have two MDs here today.
So we sweated that one out, didn't we? So I retired in 2004, thinking that I was going to do more health policy, and ended up doing some overseas teaching for a couple of years in some foreign countries. Some of them you've heard of, some of them you may not have. And then I went over to the other side. I got into politics. And
don't say other side.
It is the other side to some of my colleagues.
I put a little humor into that. I couldn't let that slide.
Well, I think it's not a bad thing to be on the other side. I'd always been involved a lot with political races and a lot of health policy, but never really anticipated being an elected official until I was having breakfast with a close friend in 2007, and he looked at me and said, "They're having an alderman race, and you ought to run for alderman." And sometimes people say things to you, and you back off, and sometimes it's a knee-jerk reaction to
Yes,
say, I
sir.
think I will. Well, I said, I think I will. So I didn't realize what I was getting into because there were 14 people running for 4 positions at that time. And I was fortunate enough to be the top vote getter, and then never anticipated being mayor of the city of Franklin. What a great honor. But our former mayor resigned to become a commissioner for the state of Tennessee.
And what year was this?
2011.
2011.
And so I finished out his term, and since that time I've had 3 elections, and looking forward to a 4th election in 2023 in the fall, and having a 4th term as mayor of the greatest city in America, in my opinion. So it's a fun job. It's as hard a work as I've ever done. It's very similar to being a doctor, because what do you do with a doctor? You ask the patient what's wrong with them, and they explain to you, and you'll ask them a few questions. Well, I do a lot of that. And sometimes those sessions where people come to visit with me, they're not happy, and we try to figure out why they're not happy and try to resolve that issue. But most of the time, most people in Franklin are very happy. We have great services. We're one of the top cities in the country. People copy us. A lot of people look to us to see what we're doing and how we're doing it, and whether it's has to do with their solid waste collection, whether it's doing with what we're doing as far as health in our community, or whether it's our monetary policy. We're considered a leader in all those things, a leader in sustainability.
Yeah, thank you.
So maybe one of my deviations, people would say, what are you doing now as a doctor? Well, during the Haslam administration, Governor Haslam identified 9 cities in the state of Tennessee that were identified as pilot communities for healthier cities, and Franklin was one of those. And you had to do a certain number of things to fulfill that qualification, and so we did. And part of it was having meetings with citizens and identifying what we thought our community objectives were, which were tobacco cessation, activity, exercising, obesity, and lastly, mental health. And we found that we did really well on 3 of those, but when we started talking about mental health, people kind of shy away. They didn't want to talk about it. So we've really worked real hard in the last 2 years to raise awareness in our community of mental health issues. We have a high suicide rate in our community, and we're working to train folks. In fact, we'd love to come out here and train folks on...
May 10th, my show is on depression and suicide. So I would like to invite you back.
If I'm in town, I'd love to come and talk some about it.
And I would have more time to spend with you today, but you had an earlier meeting, and I have to conclude my podcast show in order to get it out there properly. But I indeed want to thank you for making yourself available, especially with such a rush schedule. But I appreciate you very much. And this is only my 2nd podcast, so I can only get better if I continue to get guests like yourself.
Well, I look forward to, if I'm available, to come talk about suicide and mental health illnesses and what we're doing in our community.
And I'm sorry that you didn't have the opportunity to hear Dr. Karla Montague Brown discussing her autoimmune too that she has, and that would have been interesting. I'm sure you could have posed some questions or made some comments.
I could have set some wrist or broken some bones while she was talking about that.
Okay. So consider May 10th. Hannah,
You get in touch with Hannah.
I will get in touch with Hannah. And again, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you very much, Dr. Karla. I always get the middle name, Montague Brown, for coming out and educating us on autoimmune disorder and your struggles through it. Okay, let's close by thanking our guests that came out to hear the show. I appreciate you very much. And April 12th, we're going to have Terry Fricon. She's the former business partner of Fred Astaire. And she's also an executive entertainment entertainment executive here in Nashville. She will be here April 12th. So I invite you to my April 12th podcast, and thank you, Dr. Brown and Mayor Ken Moore, for coming out. Thank you.